You're listening to the Go Getter podcast. I'm your host, Candace. I'm a digital marketing and automation strategist and business coach. I'm the CEO and founder of Epic Fab Girl, where we help Christian women entrepreneurs market and scale their service-based businesses beyond six figures as they grow deeper in their faith. So whether you're a coach, speaker, or a service provider, this podcast will drop gems, bringing you tips, strategies, and stories from experts to help you take your life, business, and relationship with God to the next level. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Go Getter podcast. Y'all already know I'm your host, Candace, and I am so excited that y'all are here with us for another episode of the Go Getter podcast. And I promise y'all, today you are in for a treat, right? Like, we are specifically interviewing more six-figure revenue earners in their business and to share with you a little bit more about how they built and scaled their businesses to six figures and beyond. Today's guest is Dr. Joy McLaughlin-Harris. She is an incredible woman of God. If you were at Go Getter Conference 2023, you already know. Listen, that's all I got to say. But I know y'all are in for a treat. So let me introduce to you Dr. Joy McLaughlin-Harris. She is a native of Gadsden, South Carolina. She's an award-winning international speaker, shift doctor, and rebrand coach. And she's a prophetic voice in the marketplace. That's one of the things I absolutely love about her. She's the owner of Touch of Joy International, LLC, and the founder of Touch of Joy Youth Foundation, which is an organization that's dedicated to providing scholarships to young entrepreneurs starting their first businesses. Y'all, without further ado, I want to welcome Dr. Joy, the Shift Doctor, to the Go Getter podcast.
It is so good to be here, Candace. I am so honored to be here. I was like, who's she reading about? Like, I want to meet her, right? But thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here today just to share a little about my six-figure journey.
Yes. So one of the things I always like to ask before we start jumping into, the business stuff is I would love to know, like, what has been your journey with faith when it comes to business?
That's a loaded question. Like, that's like the whole podcast. One of the things, like, of course, I don't know how you can be an entrepreneur without having faith in God. Let me just say that first and foremost, right? Because God give you a vision. You step out on faith. You trust God for the vision. A lot of times, like, not knowing what's going to happen, what's that going to look like. So for me, one of the things with my faith is really the intimate time that I spend with God. Like, my mornings start at 4:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, because I'm on Eastern Standard Time, so that I can get in the presence of God to, like, really hear his voice. And then sometimes I just got to shut the noise out. We know about fasting and praying, right? Some things come by fasting and praying. So I just have to shut the noise out, shut the TV down. I remember one year I went without watching television for a whole year. So it's like, what are you willing to sacrifice and what are you willing to give up to go up? So my faith has really been, that journey from faith to faith and glory to glory has really been just about my intimacy with God, spending time in God's presence, trusting God for things that I don't know how it's going to happen. And then just stepping out on faith and allowing the Lord to lead, God, and direct me in all things, and just getting and silencing all the noise. So that's a little bit of my faith journey.
I love that so much. And one of the things you talked about was, like, literally letting go of TV for over a year. Yeah, and it reminded me of a journey I had where in my entrepreneurial journey, I didn't watch TV for like 3 years. Like, I picked back up watching TV after I became a full-time entrepreneur. And it really helped me hear God's voice, but it also helped me be just focused and get work done, because we waste so much time, on TV and things like that. Now, before we get deeper into, our conversation, I would love to know, because, when we hear your bio, we hear all these amazing things. I really want to know, tell us from your perspective, what is it you do? Tell us about your business. Tell us how you got started. Tell us all the things.
Okay, so y'all heard all the stuff in the bio. So I'll just for a quick recap. Shift doctor, and rebrand coach. It was actually birthed from my background is in the beauty industry. I still have all my license over 20 years. And I was in the beauty industry doing that for over 20 years. And that was my familiar thing. But I knew that God was calling me to something different. He was calling me to more. And I was going to have to make a decision to get uncomfortable. So in getting uncomfortable, that means that I was going to have to shift from the thing that I was familiar doing to the thing that I was unfamiliar doing, which is my company right now, Touch of Joy International. We do business as Touch of Joy Coaching and Consulting and Shift for Dr. Joy Ministries. So when I sold my salon. So when I sold my salon 5.5 years ago, I was trying to find somebody like to help me in that shift, like a coach or somebody who can just kind of walk with me as I'm shifting from this place of familiar to unfamiliar. There was nobody. Right. So I became the somebody. And that is how all of this shift name came about. And, the shift coach and at that time, the Rebrandologist and all of that. So that's when all of that came along because I basically became my avatar. I created a blueprint, a framework to make six figures from a book. I started helping other people do that. And then I was like, oh, I am on to something. And then the other thing is, I want to say this, y'all, I did not own the building of my salon. I just owned the brand. So what that let me know is I built a solid brand that I was able to sell my social media pages. Y'all hear me when I say I sold my social media pages, the business name. I sold all of the rights because I had a solid brand. So that's when this whole thing about branding really started coming. And then my unique value proposition as far as what makes me unique in the marketplace, I'm licensed in cosmetology. So when I'm helping people with their branding shoots and all of that, I'm looking at their face. I'm looking at more than just the clothes and all of that. So that's what makes me unique. So I was like, I am on to something. I'm on to something. So that's a little bit of my story, my backdrop. I made the shift, Candace, from what was familiar for 20 plus years to what was to launch something unfamiliar. I made a decision to shift from my good to my great. And I know we're going to talk about my 6-figure journey, but I had my first 6-figure month after I shifted from good to great. So we'll come back to that. But had I never shifted from my good, and let me tell you, I'm country, so the language might not always come out in the right grammar or English, okay? But we still here. But Candace, I'm telling you, if I never made that shift, I would never have experienced 6 figures as soon as I did and had my first 6-figure month. The 6-figure year was good. But when God is calling you to greater, it's more money, more impact, influence, relationship capital, and everything that comes with one decision. One decision. I'll stop right there because I can talk.
Listen, but I love it. I mean, I just love that we're able to have these conversations as believers that are like, you know what? You can not only make 6 figures a year, but what about a 6-figure month, right? Like that would absolutely blow our minds, right? And so one of the things I would love to know is, tell us about that journey to getting the 6 figures in the business that you're in. And, of course, we want to hear that story of the 6-figure month, but let's just break it down from a fundamentals of like, tell us your journey to getting the 6 figures. And I want to know, like, what do you feel like was most important to help you get there?
So what I always tell people, Candace, it's not becoming a millionaire, but it's the person that you need to become. So as much as we work on business, I worked on myself. Personal development was very important in my journey to 6 figures. Because I believe the personal development part, which is your mindset, which is your spirit and your body, that's your dirt. And if that dirt is not right before you start building a business, then now you are putting yourself at risk for when a storm comes, that everything just blows down. So my journey really started with me. It really started with me making the decision to work on me, to surrender to another version of me and being who I needed to be in God. And it was very uncomfortable. So that's where coaching came in. I did get a coach. It ended up being a business coach. So that's where coaching came in. I believe that mentorship and coaching is so important on your journey because a lot of times we can sit there and try to figure it out. But if somebody already went before us, we can just pay them to help us get there a little quicker. I don't want to take the escalator. I'll take the elevator. I want to be able to go quicker. So if I can find somebody that's already went that can get me there, I'll do that. So I started with a coach, mentor. I had book mentors like the late Dr. Miles Monroe, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. So I really, really, like I said, immersed myself in personal development. Like that was key. And then as I got a coach, the coach was able to kind of audit, see what I needed help with. And then this is when systems came in place. Like I believe that when you start putting systems in your business and ways to make money without you trading time in for money, that is when I begin to really see the shift in that journey. When I started putting systems and processes in place, and even when it comes to like SOPs, standard operating procedure, because now I had my first team member, y'all. I done grew up in the business streets. My first team member I hired was an executive assistant and somebody that could help me with admin. And I always tell people, do a SWOT analysis and hire your weakness first. So for me, I'm not real strong when it comes to like administrative and tech stuff. And then my second person was social media. So it was really the personal development, putting process and systems in place, having people be in place to help me, because big vision needs help. You can't do big vision by yourself. So at some point, you got to make a decision to get help, whether that's systems or people or both. And then that was the process to me getting to my first 6-figure year with the company before I even had that first 6-figure month.
I love that. One of the things that I think is so important, and I think is an interesting conversation that we can have on this platform, because we talk about God, right?
Yeah.
Is that, you talked about, personal development. You talked about, the things that help you get there, from the standard operating procedures to hiring a team, right? But I feel like there's a level of spiritual development that's needed. To get to that place of 6 figures, and even just as a business owner. So like, how are you going about consistently developing yourself spiritually and intentionally growing in God, especially on that journey to getting to 6 figures? But even just for entrepreneurs who are really trying to really solidify their relationship with God, like, what are you doing to make sure that you're growing spiritually?
That's a really good question, because a big part of the personal development was the spiritual journey. So what I do is, I said this at Candace conference, and she was like, people just kept saying rest is a posture. I rest, guys. I rest in God. Sometimes I had chaos going on and I rest in the chaos. So what I do is what I call a quarterly vacation. And if I could just keep it real with y'all, sometimes I couldn't go out of town. So I had to go to the hotel up the street, and I got still in God. And this is before I became a wife and a mom. And I shut down my phone. I shut down everything. I did 1 to 3 days based on what the Lord was telling me to do. And I got quiet and I got in the presence of God. And I do this once a quarter. I rest in God. And that is when I can begin to hear the Father clear. And I do fast during that time of rest. So for me, it's quarterly vacations just to get in the presence of God. For me, I practice, I do fasting and praying every month. God has me doing fasting and praying every month just to hear his voice clearly. I told you I wake up at 4:30. What that looks like is my journal time with the Lord, my prayer time with the Lord. And I was talking on a recent Bible study, Candace, about the chosen ones that wake up at 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., the fourth watchers, the ones that get up and God be speaking to you. You just want to sleep. So God wakes me up a lot during that time. And I'm able to really just hear what it is that he wants me to pray for over the earth, over the marketplace, for myself. So it's that discipline of getting up early, Candace. It's those rest times where I take a break from all things social media, people, places, and things, and I just rest in God's presence. It's that journaling time where I'm able to release my thoughts of what I feel like the Father is saying. And then I also read books every month. My goal is to read 2 to 3 books a month. Normally I do an audio book, and I still like reading actual books in my hand. I like to have them in person. So I do a lot of reading and feeding my spirit with faith-based podcasts. Leaders that I listen to in the marketplace. So that's a little bit of like the spiritual journey. And of course, just staying in the word of God, just reading.
Listen, I'm glad you ended there, because I wanted to ask, like, for someone who is, because the Bible can be intimidating, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big book. Some of it seem confusing. Like, what advice do you have for someone who's like trying to like get and grow in the word and stay in the word, and like how do you approach like actually reading the Bible and applying it to your life and business?
Yeah, the Bible is like a story. Like, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It's like poetry to your ears. I mean, you got to read it in the way that it speaks to you. But I'll tell you, I started with them teen Bibles. And even right now, y'all might can hear me, might can't see, but I got like a leadership Bible by John C. Maxwell. There's different Bibles out there that you can get to speak to. Like, they have a financial literacy Bible. So if you are like a person that's heavy in finances, and it really, really breaks it down. And then I like the Message version too. It break it down where you can just really like understand it. And it just sounds like your homegirl, somebody talking to you or whatever, but it's the Father speaking through messaging, through the message word. So I would say, find a translation that works for you. Find a Bible that works for you, that may fit into the topic or field that it is that you do. And then this might be too much to get into like the concordance, and I got dictionaries, and that might be a little bit too much, but start there first. Start and then get to a Bible study. Go to a place that teaches the Bible that can help you really be able to, that's where that spiritual mentor comes in place. That can really be able to help you understand or break down the word. Or if you got a question, this is what I'll say to Candace: get y'all a faith-based mentor. So that's another thing. My mentors was just not people that just good at what they do. I wanted to have a faith-based mentor because I know a lot of times they're going to come from the spiritual principles of God. And if I have a question about the Bible, I can ask that person too. So get somebody who can help y'all understand what it is that you're reading if you have a question. So those are a little bit of some pointers for people that may be like new to reading it. But y'all, when I'm listening to it, I read out loud when I'm at home. That's why I love being at home or someplace where other people are not. And that's why I get up early, because I got a 7-year-old and she still be asleep. Because I like to read it. And like I said, when I read it, it be sounding like poetry to my ear. It be sounding like music. Like I make it work for where I can begin to understand and process it. So I'm just extra like that. So you got to do what works for you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like one of the things I would say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I had this feeling like, man, I'm a Christian, but I haven't gotten through the whole Bible. And it started to make me feel really like I need to do something about this. Cause it's like, how can I say I'm in relationship with God, but don't know the fullness of what the Bible says? Like, and then, like I want to be able to, the Bible talks about studying and showing yourself approved, but I really wanted to be able to know what the Bible actually said. And one of the things that helped me was, I want to say I did this this was maybe in 2019, that I made a decision to listen to the entire Bible on audiobook. So, Bible app, like you can listen to it like from beginning to the end. And I listened to everything. And that helped me understand and hear the stories of what was happening and see how kind of things all went and wove through. And then I take time to like topically, go study different things or study different people's stories when God tells me to. But I feel like you said, do what makes sense for you. And then the other thing for me is I really enjoy the Life Application Study Bible because that version has like notes at the bottom. It has different people input. And any Bible that you're going to, look into, you definitely want to make sure that you're also taking in God's perspective as well. Like, Lord, this might be in the notes on this, but is this what you are really saying? Or are you saying something else? And so I think that is really, really important. If you've learned anything from this podcast, I know you're going to love the Go Getter Confidential Click at gogettermembership.com. It's a global membership community for Christian women entrepreneurs to connect, build wildly profitable service-based businesses, and grow their faith. So whether you're just getting started with an idea or you already have an established brand and you want to lay the foundation for 6-figure income, the Go Getter membership is just what you need. With expert masterclasses, monthly prayer, and tons of courses and downloads, your business will be better because of it. Entrepreneurship isn't easy, but this community will help you go from feeling stuck to clear and motivated. Join today at gogettermembership.com and save 50% off your first 3 months when you use code podcast at checkout. We'll see you inside. So now, y'all, like, one thing about me, I really like to make sure that we break things down for people because I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we can look at other people's stories and not like, and it feels like we're so afar off from them, right? Like, it's like for the woman who's like, man, I just want to hit my first 6 figures, right? Like they can look at someone like me and you that have made 6 figures in business and feel like, man, like, I'm not sure that that's even possible for me, but I want to break it down. And I want to hear like, where were you at? Like, what year was it that you hit your first 6 figures? How long had you been in business? What were you selling? What worked? What didn't work? Like, because I think a lot of times people think that getting to 6 figures is just like, boom, I made it. But there's so much leading up to, that actual place of actually making the 6 figures. So I want to know, like, what were you selling? Like, where were you at? Like, Did it hit you by surprise? Like, I want to know the story of getting to your first 6-figure year.
Yeah. So the great thing is, y'all, this is crazy that it took me 10 years to make 6 figures in the beauty industry, but it took me a few years to make 6 figures in my new company, right? Because I knew if I did it before that I was going to be able to do it again, right? So it was actually, Candace, I'll never forget. I was sitting at home. It was during COVID when everything had shut down. And I speak to, that's a part of my business, one of my income sources. And I wasn't able to speak. I wasn't able to do a lot of in-person stuff because everything had kind of shut down. So y'all, this is when I really began to study the word monetize. And monetize means basically to make money, to take whatever you have and, make money with it. And I had this Making the Shift book, and I sat down and I was just like, I can turn this into an online course. So this is when I did turn it into an online course using Teachable. I would share my resources with y'all, and I turned it into an online course. And I was like, oh my God, I'm onto something. So y'all, let me tell y'all something. I changed my language to change my life too. So that's the other thing. You gotta know that you can make it, so you can attract the thing that you're believing. So I used to always say make money, and everybody want to make money. But when I started saying monetize brand and I started studying what that means, I started to attract a different type of people. So I also increased my pricing during this time because I was sitting at home studying and I had time to become an expert. But I also had time to look at what I had in my hand to expand. And I'll never forget, I was reading a story about Moses and Moses not understanding what he had. But when Moses understood what he had, I was like, God, I'm Moses. I got something in my hand. I got power in my hand. I just need to understand. So I turned the book into an online course. And then this is where that 6-figure blueprint started, Candace, because I started taking that book. I became shift speaker, shift coach. I started a shift podcast. It's just all things shifting that led to 6 figures starting from a book, right? This happened during COVID, sis, right? And this is the other thing. I showed up live for a year during COVID doing Monday motivation. I think I missed 2 Mondays in the whole year. So people would be like, my sister-in-law would be like, girl, they was waiting at me at the door time. Wait, that girl that do Monday motivation. So my consistency allowed people to respond to a voice in the marketplace. Like they were looking for me to show up. So my yes opened up doors to so many other yes in my life. Because now I'm speaking on virtual stages. And I'm like, oh my God, speaking 6 events in 1 day from home and getting paid. So I tapped into something greater during the time of COVID. And that was the year that I made 6 figures in my business. Did y'all hear me during COVID? I made the 6 figures. Let me just look, because you got me thinking back, sis. Like, hold on, wait a minute, where was it?
Listen,
so during COVID, I monetized my book. I was speaking on virtual stages. God just shifted everything in my life, and that was the start of that 6-figure year.
It's so crazy. We didn't know each other then, but
we
both, that was both of our first 6-figure year, baby. Both of us had been in business before. But it's like, I think there's something about being in position when something happens and when something shifts in the marketplace.
My God.
I remember during 2020, everybody thought, we was all about to be broke. Like it was just, but I was like, this is the year that God told me that I'm going to another level. So even though my bank account may say $0 or $1.75, I know that God is going to take me to another place. And one of the things I love about your story is that you said you took what you knew and you monetized it. You turned it into a course. That course made you money. You were getting paid to speak from home. Like all of that stuff is money that you can be making. Now, my question is, when it came to like your courses and like all of the things, like, did you ever struggle with like figuring out what to charge? Like, how much were you, like, were these like low price stuff and you were selling a bunch of them, or were you selling more so high ticket stuff that, you were selling to smaller audiences? I'd love to know like how you figured out what was going to sell well and like what your strategy was to like actually make the 6 figures.
Okay, so that's really good. But before I go there, I got to go back to something you said that just was pulling on me. And that was that being in position. Because so many times God tells us to do stuff and we don't do it. And then when the world shut down, because we didn't give out God our yes, now we're not in position. When he told us to start the business, we didn't start the business. Because think about that PPP money. You could have got some of that money if you just had to be in business and do what you needed to do. So it's like, that was so powerful, Candace, because I was in position. I was in position for a yes that I gave God yesterday. So when the world shut down, I was able to is it adverse situations create, is a word I'm looking for. Like when you have things happen in the world, it just helps to create greatness, or is the word I'm looking for. But yeah, so because I gave God my yes yesterday, that year was a blessing for me. So when it came to the price of the courses, don't forget during COVID, everybody else was having classes too, sis. I was taking $29 classes, $39, $49 classes. So I took other people, because I knew what I was doing. Y'all heard, I'm not tech savvy. Like, that's just not my anointing. Administrative, that's just not my anointing. So I was taking these classes of people that had did it before and getting the idea like, okay, how much do I charge for this book that I turned into a course? It wasn't considered high ticket. It was 2 figures, 3 figures. I feel like high ticket is like 4 figures or more. But no, the courses range from like $49 to maybe like 200 and something dollars. So I took a class and they talked about what they did, and that kind of helped me with my charge. But no, I absolutely had no idea. Girl, I was struggling on Teachable. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that I had to put it on a platform to be able to sell it. So I took classes that was offered during that time because everybody had a virtual class, and I was just taking classes and learning, different things to help me on my journey. So it goes back to that mentorship and coaching.
I love it. So it sounds like, okay, so you took the book, you turned it into a course, and then you started selling it. So how are you even getting people to like find out about your course? How are you getting people like, did you have an email list? If so, like how big was it? Like, did you have a social media following? If so, how big was it? Because I want to really break it down. Like, I want people to understand that, because a lot of people be thinking that we got to be at a certain level in a certain space to make any type of money. And it's like, what you think you might need, you probably
You really don't
like,
need it. Yeah.
like, so what did you really need?
Yeah. Well, the truth be told, it was the consistency of my show up, sis. I ain't had no social media followers. Honey, my flyers had looked like clip art back then. Because what was girl, what was Canva and all of those things? Okay. First and foremost, I was out here trying, okay? But girl, I go back and look at some of my flyers.
Wait. We got to take it back to the nugget of the clip art, baby. Because one of the things I can't stand, I don't like ugly flyers.
My flyers,
but ugly flyers be working sometimes. Like, so there are people that I know, like there are brands that I know of, and I be laughing because I be like, oh my God, I hate their branding. I hate their marketing. I hate their visuals, but they're making money.
They're making money. And let me tell y'all something. Oh, Candace, I wish, you're going to have to show the flyer for everybody that looks at this. We're going to have to put something that they can click on so I can show them how my Monday motivation flyer look. I had learned how to remove the background, remove bg.com. I learned how to remove the background now so I could put my picture that was not a professional picture all the time, by the way, okay, and put it on a flyer that said Monday motivation, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I didn't know how to remove the background in the beginning. So the Facebook thing it was on the flyer in the square. And girl, I got to show it to you, but Candace, it was my consistent show up. So many times the baby not even walking yet, and we be like, okay, this is not even working. We don't even get a baby chance to walk. So I believe that because I stayed consistent long enough for that year, that the show up of my consistency is what let money show up in my bank account. But I did not have a follower. My flyers look like clip art. But what I started doing, because I started getting good with that thing, is every Monday they wanted some more. So, make sure you guys go and, grab my online course, or this is when I started a community, be a part of my community. I started getting good with, being able to like sell, but it really was the consistency. And it probably, truth be told, it was probably not about 6 months in that I really started to sell the products, because I had to, create everything. And then that's when the speaking engagements and stuff started coming in like a flood too. So I leveraged that. Now those flyers was a little bit cuter. And I had my face was always on stuff. So the visibility on other people's platform opened the door for me. So when I spoke on their platforms, I was able to sell my product. So that's pretty much how it happened. It became like a domino effect, but it started with clip art flyers. But the main thing was my voice. I don't know, whoever listening to this, your voice is your superpower. So when you use what you have, that right there will change your entire life. Y'all, I was in the house. I used the book I already wrote, my voice I already had, clip art flyers, okay? And I showed up consistently. And during that year, Candace, this is also when I became brand ambassadors for people's companies. I like clothes. I like jewelry. I like shoes. And where we going? I was buying stuff. So people like, hey, can you be my brand ambassador? Y'all, I still ain't had that many followers. Let me just say that. They just needed somebody to put the clothes on. So I was beating my face with makeup every day, standing on my porch, taking pictures of people's clothes, making them money and me money through what we call affiliate link. Okay, I'm helping y'all. We talk about passive income. And God said, I am on to something. I am on to something. So I'm telling you, during that year, I just had multiple streams of income. But it was really the secret sauce is you. And the other thing is consistency of your show up. Them the main two things right there, Candace.
Man, that is so good because I think so many people miss out on what God wants for them because they give up too soon. And one of the things God dealt with me about recently, I think, you're one of my personal friends, and
Yeah.
I think I might have texted you this, but I was getting overwhelmed with social media lately.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm definitely over social media. And I even came to God. I'm like, God, I'm over social media. He's
Yeah.
like, are you over social media, or are you just over it right now because you're not popular on there right now?
I
And I'm
remember you
like,
text that.
first of all, I had a stank face. Like, why? Who you talking to? Like, why you got to talk to me like that?
Mm.
But the God gets us together the way we need to get together. And literally, I was like, all right, I made a commitment that I'm gonna post, one reel a day, even though I don't feel like it, even though Instagram, I feel like ain't on my side. Why do I have 2 videos since I made that decision. One has over like 90,000 views.
Wow.
Another one has over like 100,000. Like the last time I looked, it was at 113. And sometimes we can let our emotions get in the way of the show up. And I feel like
Yes.
when we show up, we don't even realize that we're just getting better in the process.
That's
We're
so
getting
good.
better at creating content. We're getting better at going live and being able to talk freely. Like every time you showed up, for the Motivation Mondays, you
Yes.
got better at learning how to be like, oh, hey, I see you, without the live being awkward. Like, y'all ever been on somebody Instagram live and you're like, this is weird, I'm going to exit stage left.
Right.
But like, how you think you're gonna get better at it if you don't just keep practicing? So I love, love, love that. I love that you've been able to build, a 6-figure business from, just selling a course and then turning it in. Now I know you've turned it into coaching programs and things like that. It sounds like we might not need to have a whole nother part 2 of this episode to talk about, how you really scaled and grew your business beyond that 6-figure mark. But I'm so glad that you were able to help us understand that it don't take what you think you need to take. And so my question to you is like, what do you say to the woman who is afraid? Well, no. Before we get into that, what are the top 3 things, lightning round? Top 3 things you feel like every person needs to have in place if they're going to build and scale their business to 6 figures?
The top 3 things I would definitely say is community. And with that community could be a mentor, coach, but just having somebody who can be able to, speak to what it is that you do, can look at what it is that you do to help you be able to, level up, take it to the next level. First of all, let me just back that up real quick. First of all, a relationship with God, because that's first and foremost. But you got, and let me just say this. I'm not talking about being engaged to God, but I'm talking about like, and dating God, but I'm talking about being married to him. I'm talking about having a ring on it, being made in his image, showing up, and you can see that God is in you. So let me just take that back to a relationship with God, an intimate relationship with God. Number 1. Number 2, I feel like mentorship and because normally that has community attached to it. And I'm telling you, like Candace said, we're friends, but we also met in a community of movers and shakers. So I feel like community is very, very important. And then the third thing I would say is, well, that kind of still ties back into personal development because I was going to say personal development. The third thing I would say, I want to say personal development, but I feel like mentorship and coaching. Well, yeah, I'll still say personal development because I feel like it's another level of personal development when it comes to just like reading books, listening to podcasts, and other things that you have to do outside of a mentorship and coach. So I say God, mentorship, coach, and then personal development. Those would be the top 3.
All right. And so what do you say to the woman who's afraid of going after her next big thing?
I would say to that woman, just do it. Like Nike say, just do it and don't try to do it and be perfect because at every level of evolution, you become a different version of yourself. So it's beautiful when you can look back and see like where you started and see like where you at now. And don't compare yourself because comparison is the thief of joy. Don't compare yourself to somebody day 1000 when you on your day 1. You just do it yourself and don't look at what other people are doing and just make the step, Peter. The miracles came once Peter stepped. So just step out the boat and trust God for the miraculous. is what I'll say. And one thing I want to hit, Candace, before we get off, because you said something that was so powerful when you were speaking about social media. I think a lot of times people look for other people to show up for us, but God wants to know, will you show up for him? So you looking for a response from everybody in the marketplace to buy your product or to do your next thing. But God really wants to know, can you show up for me when nobody ain't buying nothing? Can you show me that I'm the person, I'm the reason that you live, move, and have your being? So sometimes God don't allow people to respond to you because you ain't responding to God. So he won't allow the money to get in. He won't allow people to respond to it because what he's trying to break from you is the whole affirming of other people instead of from him. So I'll just say that too. And sometimes, yeah, it may look like failure in business, but it's really data. But it's also really the Father testing you to see, like, are you willing to give me your yes before other people give you a yes? And you talking about it ain't working. No, you ain't working in God long enough to do what he called you to do. Because it may be like Candace say for you just to get better. When I initially showed up that Monday motivation, that was a yes to God. I didn't show up to go in it for a money thing. I did ministry first. And when you are a kingdompreneur, it's ministry over money. The money gonna come when you give God your yes. So I believe for somebody that may be watching today, you be like, oh, what I'm doing is not working. No, are you working it long enough according to what God said? Because he might just be wanting you to get better, because on the other side of obedience is acceleration. And then when you be obedient in the thing that God has called and you gain confidence, 6 months later, instead of charging $10, you might charge 10,000. And then now you're able to make more money. I feel this in my spirit, Candace. It done shifted, and I know we got to go, but I just feel like whoever is watching this, I just hear the Lord say in the spirit, you've been looking for the people to respond to your show up, but God said he needed to respond first. And now that you've given God your yes long enough, he can now respond with the people with money. But when you go back and be clear and confident in the thing God called, I need you to increase your pricing. And trust God to do exceedingly abundantly more than you can ask or think. I'll say this, Candace, and I'm done. Eyes have not seen, nor have ears heard what the Lord wants to do in the life of everybody that's watching this podcast, that's listening to this podcast. Like, God wants to blow your mind. He wants to do it in a way that's new. He wants to do it in a way that's unorthodox. The problem is you've been looking for him to do it the familiar way and the way that your cousin did it yesterday and your coach did it. God said he's calling you to be the blueprint. That's all I got, Candace. Thank you so much for having me.
Listen, we gotta know, how can we stay connected with you online? You got any amazing resources you can share with us?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. So I'm at Shift with Dr. Joy on Instagram, YouTube, all the platforms, Twitter, and I'm at Shift with Dr. Joy Ministries on Facebook. And I would love for you guys to go grab my free ebook called 8 Ways to Get Shift Together. You can go to any of those platforms and grab it there, and just get those 8 ways to really help you get your life together and get on track to be all that God has called you to be.
We love it over here. Thank you so much. This episode has been so incredible. I really, really thank you so much for just being here and sharing with our audience.
Thank you so much for having me, Candace. I am always honored when somebody allows me to come be on a platform that they have. So I honor you, woman of God. Thank you for sharing this time with me and allowing me to be a part of what God has given to you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I know y'all ladies totally enjoyed this episode. So I will see y'all again on the next episode of the Go Getter Podcast. Thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Go Getter Podcast. If you love this conversation, you're going to love the panels and workshops that are at Go Getter Conference. It's our premier event of the year, and it happens annually. It's going to help you market and monetize your God-given ideas and connect with women from across the globe. Head over to gogetterconference.com to check it out right now. And just for staying until the end of this episode, we have a special gift for you, the Go Getter Plan and Profit Workbook. This workbook is going to help you plan your income for the year. So head to gogetterpodcast.com/plan and profit to get your copy. And don't forget to drop a 5-star review if you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you on the next episode of the Go Getter Podcast.